Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Power of Love Summit. I'm Agapi Stassinopoulos, and I'm so thrilled and honored today to be here with my dear friend, Deepak Chopra. I'm just going to read you a few facts about him because if I was to read his whole full bio, we wouldn't have any time for a conversation. Deepak is a world-renowned pioneer in integrative medicine and personal transformation. He is the author of 93 books. Most of them have been bestsellers, including The 7 Laws of Success, Ageless Body, Timeless Mind, Quantum Healing, and so many others. They've all been translated in 43 languages. Deepak has been in the forefront of the meditation revolution for over 30 years. His new book, Digital Dharma, How an AI Can Elevate Spiritual Intelligence and Personal Well-Being, is going to be released September 17th, 2024, and I can't wait. But we can all pre-order it right now, and it is available to pre-order until we get it. He has influenced millions of people, sharing his wisdom, his mastery, and may I say, his generosity and his heart. For millions of people, he has helped us access a higher level of consciousness. He has 2 children, Malika and Gotham, 3 grandchildren. He's a dear personal friend of mine and my family's, and I definitely have been the beneficiary of his love, his generosity, and his support for my work. Deepak, welcome. Thank you so much from all of us for making this time.
Thank you.
And I love
Sure.
that you are wearing the red, like we tuned in into the fire of love.
Correct, the fire of love.
So just to start us off, could you just share with us and our audience, what does love mean to you?
Love is ultimately the aspiration to return to our fundamental state, which is beyond subject-object split. So while a lot of us go through the experience of love as a feeling, a sentiment, an emotion, those are actually the earlier stages of love. Ultimately, love is unity consciousness, which means that to use philosophical terms, the observer and the observed are one, the seer and the scenery are one, the knower and the known are one, and in the context of relationship, the lover and the beloved are one, essentially. And that is something that I learned a long time ago, as I was growing up in India, reading the poetry of Rabindranath Tagore. He said, love is not a mere sentiment, it is the ultimate truth at the heart of the universe, which means that a single consciousness differentiates into all knowers, all modes of knowing, and in all things known. A single consciousness differentiates. So it's very important to understand that differentiation is not the same thing as separation. Your body is differentiated from a single cell. So you have nose, you have eyes, you have lips, you have tongue, you have brain, you have hair follicles, you have fingernails, you have genitalia. They all seem different, but they came from one cell. And they're differentiated aspects of that one cell. If you think of them as separate, they couldn't work together in harmony. How does a human body think thoughts, play a piano, kill germs, remove toxins, make a baby all at the same time as a unified process? A human body or any biological organism can do that. And even as it does that, it is in harmony with cosmic rhythms, circadian rhythms, seasonal rhythms, gravitational rhythms, lunar rhythms. So, we are a symphony of the whole universe, and we're not separate from it. But when we feel that separation, then, of course, that is a distortion of the original union of subject and object. So as soon as subject-object split occurs, this anxiety of separation occurs. And then, we spend our whole life actually, following every impulse of love, which ultimately is the only way to bring wholeness to ourselves and to our being. So, healing, wholeness, love are all the same thing.
That's so, so beautiful. I mean, the amazing thing, of course, Deepak, is that when you talk about it, it's you transmute it. And that's the beauty. I mean, that is the mastery of your beingness. However, I wanted to ask you, was there a point in your life that you were experiencing the separation, and then you, in your own progression and your own evolution in your soul, you came into that oneness, and now you've become it? I mean, anybody who is in your presence experiences that beyond your words. It's your presence, it's your silence, and it's a transmutation of that vibration. And so many people suffer right now from this anxiety, as we know, especially the young people, with this higher level of anxiety. There's this new book, Anxious Generation, just really because of the social media and the technology and the insecurity and the unsafety that people feel. So first of all, how did you get there? And how can we support people who are listening to us right now and give them some practical tools to get there step by step? Or is it grace? Or is it just like one moment you just get hit by 10 by 4 and you go, wow, I got it?
I was in a unique situation because I grew up in India, and I was exposed to mythical stories about love from my mother at the age of 4 or 5. And she had an uncanny knack of actually singing these, because the original mythical stories were in poetry and verse anyway. She had the knack of singing these mythical love stories, like you have in the West, you have Romeo and Juliet, or you have Leela and Majnu, etc. in the East, but there were even bigger mythical stories, Radha and Krishna, Shiva and Shakti. And in all these stories, there were, the trials and tribulations that people go through in the experience of love and separation. And what she would do is, and this was every evening, she would stop at what in today's language we would call a cliffhanger. Everything was going wrong. The lover and the beloved were separated. The villain was winning. Everybody was traumatized. It was a huge crisis. And then she would stop and she said, now, before you go to sleep, have the intention to complete the story by tomorrow morning. Make sure it has a happy ending.
Wow.
Make sure it's a love story, because a story is no good if it's not a love story. So I learned from her how to convert any crisis into a love story. And I give her all the credit. Even now, I can sit and remember sitting on her lap and listening to these songs. I can even smell her skin right now as I think about it. And she was amazing. And then, she took me even in those days, through the various stages of love as understood in great mythology: attraction, infatuation, communion, surrender, passion, ecstasy, all of that. She took me.
That's all the positive. She didn't take you through the rejection, the betrayal, the abandonment, none of that.
No, it started with those that you are attracted to and those that you're disgusted by are mirrors of your own self. So just write, that was the first lesson. So write down on a piece of paper all the people you're attracted to. What are their qualities? Say, that's me. Write down all the people that you are dismayed by or you don't want to spend the weekend with or go to Hawaii with. Write down their traits and then put them in one little box and say, that's me. So every encounter is a lesson to elevate you to a higher consciousness. That was the first lesson, attraction. Second was infatuation. Watch infatuated lovers. They practice 4 A's: attention, deep listening, affection, deep caring, appreciation. They notice each other's everything in a positive way. And then acceptance. They don't try to change each other. That comes later. So infatuation is the second stage. Then the third stage was communion, where you actually communicate from silence. She said, when people are angry, they shout. When they are normal, they just speak in a normal way. When they start to fall in love, they whisper. And when they become love, they are silent. So that was communion. And then from there, she went to surrender, to all this. And much later, as a doctor, when I started studying the nervous system, looking at the limbic system, I actually got very interested in the biology of love, from limbic resonance, limbic regulation, limbic revision, how love changes our epigenetic activity in the neural landscape of the brain and moves us from inflammation to healing. So that was my career, actually, and it started very early in my life. So I didn't have all the, of course, I watched all the movies and this and that, but she would say, this is very banal. Love is much more magnificent than this.
So she planted the seeds for you.
Everything, yes, absolutely.
Everything.
Absolutely.
And then in your own life, of course, because of your education and your love for medicine and then the brain, but at some point, did you start to feel the healing power of the divine work through you in the bodies? I mean, when you experience the healing, you talk so much about healing the body and the mind. Did you find that people would have spontaneous healings, or was it their belief, their faith that affected them, or was it something that is learned?
Well, when I was in medical school and even as an intern or resident, there wasn't much known about the biology of emotions. In fact, when I first started writing about quantum healing and all of that, it was vilified and criticized and all of that. But now we know from regular science that every biological organism, particularly when they move from the reptilian stage, but I now realize even the reptilian stage and even birds, they all experience love. You see birds taking care of their children. You
Yes.
see even reptiles doing that. But in mammals, it takes on a whole different dimension because unlike reptiles and birds, which lay eggs, mammals nurture the baby in their womb. And then once the baby is out, then they nurse them through feeding, breastfeeding. They coo, they cuddle, they kiss, and they play and they sing. This is true of all mammals, not just human beings, not just primates, but all mammals do this. They play, they cuddle, they coo, they sing, they touch, and they play. And this is how bonding occurs. And if the baby doesn't experience this in the first 4 or 5 years of life, then they stop developing emotionally after 8 years, which in America could be an advantage. You can run for president if you stop developing emotionally at the age of 8, particularly if your male qualifies you for office, as we are seeing right now. But if they get, what we call attention, deep listening, affection, deep caring, appreciation, noticing their uniqueness, and radical acceptance, then they continue to mature emotionally. And then, they're in a physician-patient relationship. I used to be told you don't have to be emotional about getting your patient better. It interferes with your scientific thinking, etc., etc. If your wife or your uncle or your dad is going to an operation, don't go to the operating room. You'll interfere with the scientific whatever. And yet I realized then when they were in India, there were hardly any machines, but a lot of people. And they're in the hospitals, bringing gifts, singing songs, chanting, doing rituals. And the patients did well, without all this technology. It was only later I realized that, when a patient and the healer, or the healer, it doesn't have to be a doctor, but the healer uh, gives deep awareness, deep listening to the patient or the client or whatever you want to call them, there's a phenomenon called limbic resonance. The emotional brain and
Yes.
the healer and the healee starts to resonate. And
Yes.
after a while, there's limbic regulation, that the emotional system starts to actually respond to the healer's attention. And then there's something called limbic revision. The neural networks actually change, and that happens through gene activity. And now we can see the precise markers. So you move from inflammation to homeostasis to self-regulation to healing. And this is a phenomenon that I
Yes.
think is so well understood in science that it still hasn't entered the mainstream medicine. 1980, uh, before all this became popular, there was a study in journal Science where rabbits were being fed diets very high in cholesterol by scientists to look at cholesterol metabolism.
Yes.
Then they found that there was one group of rabbits that was neither getting the same degree of hypercholesterolemia nor the hardening of the arteries. And they were very puzzled, and they found that the technician who was feeding these rabbits, instead of just throwing the food at them, he would
Yes.
take them out of their cages, he would pet them, he would cuddle them, he would kiss them, then give them the same poisonous food.
Oh
But they
my
would
God.
but their neurochemicals modulated the cholesterol in a completely different metabolic pathway. That was 1980,
Oh
an
my
actual
God.
study. Now, many other studies have been done, but mainstream medicine still doesn't recognize the power of love as the ultimate healing force.
And the power of prayer, the
And
power
the power of prayer, empathy, which
of
means you
empathy.
feel what other people feel, compassion, you have the desire to alleviate healing, and then that follows with love and action, which in our tradition we call karma yoga.
Exactly. And not only, I hope doctors are listening to this now. And I almost wish that you would write maybe a book up specifically for parents and teachers, Deepak, because that's where, as you said, it starts between 2 and 6. And I see.
Unfortunately, Agape, our society, our children have been taught to sacrifice themselves for their selfies. Our whole culture is like that. We don't know the difference between ourself and our selfie. You're always looking for validation,
Yes.
so many likes, so many dislikes. And that's now, depression is the number one pandemic in teenagers.
Exactly, and the mental health issues, the suicides, especially, as we talked about the young children. What do you think we can do? Because there seems to be, in a one way, in my experience, Deepak, there is more light and consciousness on the planet than ever before, and there is more available. All these teachings that you're talking about, and yet there is more darkness at the same time. Do you think, because the light is kind of purging out the darkness? And what can we do? Because people are, I know from myself, I suffer as I watch others suffer. So as much as is it meditation, in my experience, I need to go more and more into God, into the divine, to bring my peace out. Because what good am I if I start to get disturbed? And how do you maintain? I know you meditate for hours. I remember you were sharing with Ariana and me sometime that you actually meditate 3 hours in the morning. Am I right?
Well, combined with yoga and meditation,
And
yeah.
meditation. And is that something that people doing more of that, sending that vibration of love out there? How?
No, there are different stages in our life. So I am at that stage where I find that very rewarding. I have the time to do it. I'm not driven by ambition or fame. I can't say I've been there, done that. So, I'm in a stage of my life where this is something I can do. But as something that our foundation is doing right now, and you might want your listeners to check this out, we have a website called neveralone.love, neveralone.love. And
Mhm.
basically, It's catering to children and web and also to teenagers.
Mhm.
Along the way, we even created an emotional AI chatbot because we found that the teenagers were more comfortable speaking to a machine. They didn't feel judged. So now we've had about 25 million text messages, six
No.
6,000 suicide ideations where we intervened. And
Wow.
we are reworking with the chatbot. Behind the scenes, we have counselors. But again, what it is creating global communities for support online and offline, where people are there for each other. That's the main thing. If
Yes.
there's somebody for you behind holding your back, no matter what, you feel safe. And even though we're using AI and emotional chatbots right now, behind the scenes, there's always somebody to see if there's a crisis, what we can do. That's just the beginning. What we want to do is create a global movement around these four A's that I've been talking about: attention, deep listening,
Attention, affection,
appreciation, and
appreciation, and acceptance.
and so, the social scientists say that if you have shared vision, if you have maximum diversity, if you complement everybody's strengths and you create an emotional and spiritual bond, even online, you can solve any problem. So that's our goal, basically.
And that's part of your new book, right? Because that how
It is
AI.
one component. It is one component. You see, you have to remember that AI is not even intelligent. It's just a super um, large language model. It gives you all the data, it can analyze all the data, can give you prevailing opinion, but it's not conscious. It doesn't have intelligence as say. So
Yes.
it's a tool. It's a tool for you can use it as a personal confidant, you can use it as a research assistant, you can use it as a health coach, but you can also use it as a spiritual guide because it has access to all the wisdom traditions. You say, what did the Buddha have to say about love? What did the Rumi have to say about love? What did Jesus
Bicep
have to
say,
say
what did
love?
Krishna have to say
Etc.
about
Can you
that?
put it all together? Can you show the scientific evidence that they were right? All that becomes very useful for us right now because I'm afraid that our teenagers and the children, they don't trust authority anymore. They don't trust doctors. Even when they're sick, they go online and check it out themselves. And so there is both an advantage to that, but there's also a disadvantage because there's no one to guide them. So I think we need people to guide people into the right pathways and show them the direction. And
And more
they're
community,
not judged. That's a very important thing.
not judge.
Yes.
Not judge them, you mean, because they are
They
probably
don't want, if you, that's unfortunately, doctors, therapists become authority figures, and then you are afraid of them. It's just like people are afraid of policemen or custom officers or immigration officers. They see a person with the red coat and the stethoscope, and they say, oh, this is an authority figure before they've said anything. And that kind of alienates them, when there's what you need is a loving relationship between a healer and the person who has come to help for help.
and then the other the feelings of where we practicing gratitude and practicing forgiveness and the precursors to love, because when we talk about love, it's like, how do you experience it? But I always say, when I teach young kids, it's like, if you start to write gratitude, it already opens up your brain waves.
Yeah, yeah. If you just simply ask the question, "What am I grateful for?" Just ask that one
That's
question. "What
all.
am I
And even
grateful
to do
for?"
that with your
And then
children
you
every.
write down whatever comes to you. Inflammatory markers go down. Everything starts to self-regulate. Healing occurs. Gratitude is the holiest of holiest experiences, along with forgiveness. And you don't forgive because you think somebody deserves forgiveness. You forgive because you deserve peace.
Exactly. And you don't forgive them. You forgive. Basically, as you said, it's a mirror of you. You forgive yourself
Exactly.
for everything and everyone. And in terms of what's going on in the world now, with all the suffering and the wars and the discord in this country and everywhere, when you see it, how do you stay detached? How do you stay elevated?
Because I see that everybody is doing the best they can from the state of consciousness they're in. So you can't even judge that. And I also have,
Wisdom. That's the wisdom that we can, that's
everybody's doing what they can from their state of awareness. And ultimately, the only solution is to be the change we want to see in the world. If you
yes,
are peaceful, you'll create peace. If you are loving, you'll create love. And you don't have to worry about what the other person is doing. If we have a critical mass of people who
yes.
are the embodiment of love and peace, then we'll have a peaceful world. Otherwise, we'll have agitation.
Do you feel that there is all these energies of the discord that's going on is there is so much fear? And how do you feel that the opposite of love is not hate but fear? And can
Yes.
we bring more of that canopy of love into our own selves? I mean, I see it in myself, Deepak, and in my friends, that suddenly you are in anxiety or fear because of the collective, because we are also connected.
Not only are we connected, we are inseparable from,
Separate.
what we are as an individual is the localization of the collective consciousness. So at all times when there's phase transition, phase transition means a system is going through a major upheaval.
Yes,
Like when, say, water boils and becomes steam, you
yes,
see the turbulence, okay? And then once the whole thing is steam, then the turbulence stops. So any phase transition, you will see turbulence. At least that's my assessment at the moment that we're going through this phase transition. Now, having said that, this separate self, which is a socially induced hallucination, is the cause of everything in the world: war, terrorism, eco destruction, extinction of species, social injustice, gender injustice. All of that is this idea that we are separate. And we're not, we're differentiated consciousness. Once we start that deeper understanding that we're differentiated divine consciousness, and there is no other way to solve the problems of the world other than returning to the place where we started from before the differentiation. Because now with medieval tribal minds, and even extreme nationalism is a form of tribalism in a way,
yes.
because it's just more sophisticated. And now we have modern weapons and nuclear weapons and drones. I unfortunately went a while back to see something in Arizona, which was an army base where there were drone facilities. And you see these young men, they're smoking cigarettes, they're taking breaks in the afternoon, coffee breaks. In between, they're pushing buttons on a computer, and somebody is dying in Afghanistan at a wedding. And then they go home and play with their children as if this was a normal day, because we have so desensitized ourselves with the technology that we don't see the heinous murder we are committing in the name of either God or nationalism or the country or whatever. It's so tribal and so primitive that we're not learning that this is the perfect recipe for extinction of the human race.
Yes. And, and so with all that, in a way, you see it, you don't understand it, but you observe it, because as you're observing it, because basically there is nothing to do but observe it, because the being in you, right?
Yeah, if you carry the presence of your own being,
Which is peace and
which is
love.
already peace. It's the mind, the turbulence of the mind, which is the social conditioning we have, or the tribal conditioning we have, or even sometimes the religious conditioning we have, because we think of religion as my religion, not your religion. These days, it's also fashionable for people to say, I'm spiritual, but I'm not religious. But
Exactly.
actually, the religious experience is the same as the spiritual experience. It is finding the truth of love, number one, the emergence of platonic values like empathy, compassion, joy, and loss of the fear of death, because that which is pure love is beyond death, and birth.
Yes.
It is transcendent.
I know you talk so much about that, and I listen to your meditations about that. And it's it's encouraging because we are so identified with the story and the body and the ego. And so the death of the ego and the death of the personality, you have to really do a lot of inner work to transcend that. I know for myself, I'm not there yet. I do have a fear of dying and a fear of how to die. That's and although I know better, there is still the human part, Deepak, that that says, well, how can that be? How can I heal the part of myself that intellectually knows it, but emotionally?
Yeah, the fear of death is based on a false construct that there's something called a physical body. There's no such thing. The physical body is a combination of sensations that begins with the fertilized egg and then a zygote and then embryo, then a baby, then a toddler, then teenager, then young, old, adult, all the way to death. You say, I have a body, which one are you talking about? There is no such thing. It's a verb. It's a combination of sensations in the transcendent being that we are. Same thing with the mind. There's no mind. If you say, I have a mind, which one? 14-year-old mind, 16-year-old mind, yesterday's mind, today's mind, this morning's mind. So the only thing that's real is the presence of being. And if we identify with that, it's formless. And because it doesn't have a form, it doesn't have a border. And because it doesn't have a border, it's infinite. And because it's infinite, it's outside space-time. And if it's outside space-time, how can it die? Only things in space-time die. So, when we start to identify with that divine being, which you are, then all these things become unimportant.
And in that, I just felt like I was going to ask you if you could lead us to a short little meditation, but in a way, I feel you just did, because you're just talking about this. There was this, I started to experience an expansion of consciousness.
Well, we can do a 5 minutes. We can do so.
I would love that. If you can take us through.
Let's all close our eyes and observe the breath, first of all. Notice that the breath is a sensation. It arises, you experience it, and then it goes. If you hold on to your breath, you'll suffocate. Notice that every experience is a sensation. Every experience is a sensation. It arises, it's there, then it subsides. So you can't identify with sensations. You identify with the awareness in which sensations come and go. So right now, bring your awareness to your heart and mentally ask yourself, who am I? Who am I? What am I? Am I the changing body, or am I the awareness in which the body is a changing experience? Am I the changing mind? Or am I the awareness in which the mind arises and subsides? Focus on the sound that you're hearing, including the sound of my voice. Notice it arises, it's there, it's gone. You can't hold on to it. Try and generate an image in your mind. Maybe a sunset, maybe Empire State Building, any image. It arises, it's there, it's gone. Only the awareness remains. You can't get rid of the awareness in which all happens. So now, keeping your awareness in your heart, mentally ask yourself, what do I want? And don't try to answer it. Just see what comes up. What do I want? Any sensation, any image, any feeling, any thought. What is my purpose? Why do I do what I do? Again, just allow any sensation, any image to arise and subside. What am I grateful for? Allowing any sensation, any image, any feeling, any thought. Now just you can mentally say to yourself, I am the awareness in which thoughts arise and subside. I am the awareness in which images, sensations, sounds, textures, all of that comes and goes. But I'm always there as presence. So now hold on to that presence. Be aware of your own being, of your own presence. Presence has no shape, no color, no texture, no age, has no form, infinite, spaceless, timeless presence. That's who we are. Carry that presence with you wherever you go. Only then can you be holy, and only then can you be healed. You can relax into your body and then open your eyes.
Oh, absolutely. So beautiful. Just to do that every day kind of takes you there.
Yes.
And from all the quotes that you've, the affirmations and everything that you have said and read, is there something that you could just leave us with? I remember once you used to start with a poem, something about the stars and the night. I don't remember it, but something that you used to recite this poem. I don't know if it was Rumi or
Well, Rumi, Shakespeare, these people have said so many
Shakespeare.
things, and so have the great poets of all time. But just remind yourself, love is the ultimate truth at the heart of creation.
Mhm.
Love is not just a sentiment, although it can be a beautiful sentiment. Love is holy, and when we are holy, we are healed.
Well, you have graced us today, and you graced the world, and you keep going, like with such gusto to do your part in this creation. And I just want to say thank you. I'm so grateful to you for all you've done and all you're doing, and I love you so much. And so many people you have.
Your name says love. That's it.
Happy unconditional love. Yes, that's what I've tried to live up. As you know, my mother
Yeah,
brought that to us, and as your mother said, maybe we should encourage people to sing more, to
yeah,
sing stories, to sing to their kids, to sing
joyful.
joyful, to bring the joy out, so that as the people hear this Power of Love Summit, they can imagine if we just sang and danced
That's it.
like in the Greek way, you dance beyond the pain and beyond the fear and
And
beyond.
that reminds me of a closing Rumi quote. He says, "Don't act small. You're the universe in ecstatic motion."
Don't act small. You are the universe in ecstatic motion. So
There you are.
there. I like to read you my favorite quote from Teilhard de Chardin.
Yes,
The day will come when, after harnessing the ether, the winds, the tides, gravitation, we shall harness for God the energies of love. And on that day, for the second time in the history of the world, man will have discovered fire,
yeah, that's beautiful. The fire of love.
the fire of love. And so I can't wait to have dinner one night together and celebrate the love. And just can you share with our audience here where they can find you? You said neveralone.com.
No, dot love. Never alone. Dot love.
Neveralone.love. Beautiful.
And then just Deepak Chopra. DeepakChopra.com.
.com. And of course, you are prolific in your Instagram and in your LinkedIn, and you produce, my God, so much wisdom daily. And Deepak, I've seen you do so many things, but when I watch you do that pose on the floor and how you get up without using your hands, how do you do that?
I love yoga. That's my passion. So
And
I haven't missed in 45 years.
every day?
Every day.
And it does it recenter you and reconnects you? Is that part of why you do it? Or
I actually enjoy it. I thoroughly enjoy it. It's like it's a joyful experience for me. It's like dancing.
body, mind, spirit? You sort of like Yeah. Come together. Well, we love watching you because it's such a, I try to get out without my hands, but I cheat.
Don't worry about it.
Thank you for
Yeah.
making this time. God bless you. I love you.
God bless. God bless. Thank you. Thank you. Bye bye.